You guys, any of you ever think about, this whole multiverse thing pans out? That means that there is somewhere out there in the infinite spectrum of universes, at least one universe where everything is exactly the same, except that none of us exist, but the podcast still spontaneously does.
No, I've actually never thought about that.
Do different people do it, or does it just exist?
It's us. We just don't exist.
I don't think that's how multiverses work.
I feel
I
like
don't
it
think
is,
that's how that
though.
works.
It's a very remote possibility, but it is
If we
still...
don't exist, then this doesn't exist with us doing it.
Yeah, it would mean that the podcast was getting like saved there from a different alternate universe where we exist and we do the podcast, but the podcast doesn't exist.
What you're
Wait,
trying
so
to
is it like
say-
a fictional podcast?
So
like it exists?
I don't
like,
know. I mean,
fictionally?
like,
So,
it's
like,
exactly
in this
the way
other
it is,
multiverse,
but this is just
they
in a
tune-
universe where we aren't there.
So it's like a multiverse with a radio that tunes into the other multiverses to get podcasts.
Yeah, like in that case.
What, did they not have enough podcasts in their multiverse? Is this a
I don't know the
multiverse where they
reason.
don't have anybody that makes their own podcast?
Maybe
probably
that's
never heard of
something. Maybe that's a universe without podcasters.
Maybe it's a universe where none of the podcasters exist, so they have to get all their podcasts from other universes.
If you can't get your podcast local, imported is okay.
Do you ever feel weird, Noah? Because, like, there are those people, or there are the jokes around that are like, like everybody has, like, a podcast these days. You have 2 podcasts.
Anyways, coming to you live from the alternate universe where cats know everything there is to know about capitalism, and they are extremely smug about the fact that they don't have to participate in it.
What the fuck is this alternate universe thing you're on today?
It's the Casual Obsession Horror Movie Podcast. The Casual Obsession Horror Movie Podcast, where we Casual Obsession Horror Movie Podcast. I am your host, Jeff.
Is that a real intro? Is that what we're really doing?
I'm so confused.
I
As
think
to why at all we were talking about alternate universes in the first place. Is this because of your alternate universe get-go you were talking about?
It's just a thing I've been thinking about lately.
Because
I wasn't on the last
whale
episode,
meat
so now you have to deal
McDonald's?
with twice the amount of times weird thoughts that I've just had while I was at work.
You already brought in Phenomena.
you already, yeah, exactly.
It was one of them.
Wait, so, okay, I'm confused. Was that actually our intro? Are we really, like, live right now?
Yeah.
Or are we
Been
doing, like...
recording? I can do it again if you want, but... Welcome back to the Casual Obsession Horror Movie Podcast, the horror movie podcast. I can't even do this. The horror movie podcast where we talk about horror movies. The horror movie in question on this episode when we're doing...
Jeff.
Welcome back to
doing
the
great.
Casual Obsession Horror Movie Podcast, the horror movie podcast where we talk about horror movies. I am your host, Jeff. This episode, we're talking about Phenomena, made by Dario Argento in 1985. I maybe
good,
can't
buddy?
Did
talk.
it.
There you go. You did it. With Jeff today is me, Emma.
And me, Nina.
And me, Noah.
Nice.
We did it.
Woo.
Wow,
Jeff,
wow,
are you gonna
Jeff.
say and me, Jeff?
I'm
I
really
said my name
interested in
first, didn't I?
knowing. Really interested in knowing more about this Phenomena from 1985 by Dario Argentina movie, but perhaps without like being spoiled about it. Could you like tell me a little?
I could try to. It's a little bit difficult to break down
Oh, yeah.
What?
I'm sorry. I was just like, what do you mean try to? And then I remembered what movie it was. And I'm like, oh, yeah, no, never mind.
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult to break this movie down into a singular story or set of themes because it's kind of all over the place and it kind of plays down all the things that you're kind of supposed to notice more.
Okay.
Mhm.
It's just odd. The plot focuses on a girl at a remote Swiss boarding school who discovers that she has psychic powers that allow her to communicate with insects, and then uses that power to attempt to pursue a serial killer.
Yep.
There it is.
When you watch the movie, it doesn't flow as smoothly as that.
What? It
I don't
doesn't?
think.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I would agree.
But,
Yeah, no.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't quite seem... It's a movie that doesn't really feel like it knows what it's about exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get that.
Which is why
I
it
would
has,
fully
like...
agree.
I don't know, it's got, like, 3 separate opening scenes.
Yeah.
Like, by the time
It
our main
does.
character comes in, it's already been, like 20 minutes. You've met Donald Pleasance's character. That other girl has already, like, died, and it's just tough to tell what's gonna be important later, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So, like, do you have any perhaps fun facts about this movie that you could share with us today?
Really just that... Man, Dario Argento just makes weird movies. I think this one is a pretty good introduction to a lot of his usual stuff. Because I feel like this one's a little bit more focused on how batshit its own story is, and less on like the really cool visuals and stuff that you see in other of his movies, like maybe Suspiria or Opera even.
Mhm.
It feels like he kind of dialed some of the visual spectacle back a little bit for this one to try and focus more on the story, but then like didn't do a good job with that either. So, but yeah,
So
I mean,
no-
it's all his normal stuff. You got all the just weird dialogue, got weapons that are like way too shiny. You got a little brunette girl investigating something. That's all his favorite things.
It's true.
Okay, good to know.
Really, this is a good introduction to his stuff because it has the same flow and all the like consistent beats that you're going to see in his stuff.
Mm-hmm. So Noah, what was like the critical reception of this movie?
I mean, so here's the issue with older movies. I just want to mention this real quick. Our ratings are going to be mad skewed because none of these ratings were placed when this movie came out.
Of
I
course.
just, wanted to throw that one out there. I don't think it would have scored much higher, but, IMDb is sitting here at a 6.8 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes at a 76. Metacritic at a 57. And Letterboxd at a 3.6 out of 5. So, like...
How incredibly kind of them.
So that's another thing I wanted to mention is a lot of old movies get nostalgia bumps. You never watched this movie since it came out, but you see it on a rating site and you're like, hey, I liked that movie. So you mark it nice because you remember liking it. And you're like, I don't know, it was probably like an 8-star movie. And then people who watch it more recently are like, I hate old movies. And they mark it really low. And the ratings are just all over the place.
And sometimes
Yeah,
both
that's
of
me.
those people are Noah.
I don't know what you're implying there, my guy. I rated it a 6 out of 10. I think that this is a 6 out of 10 movie. Also, I'd like to retroactively bump my score for The Endless up to 8. I don't know why it wasn't an 8, but I felt bad about it. It is an 8.
Thank you. That means a lot to me.
know,
Okay,
Are we
so,
doing ratings?
So Noah, yours is your 6 out of 10 is your rating
Yeah,
for
it
this
is.
movie. Nina, what's
6 out
your
of 10.
rating?
My rating is also gonna be a 6. I definitely enjoyed this movie more than I thought I was going to. But I'll explain. No. Why would I wait? I've been kind of on a like 80s fantasy kick recently.
Ooh.
So my coworkers and I have been putting on a lot of like old 80s fantasy from anywhere from like more well-known stuff like The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth to Krull, which is a sci-fi fantasy where aliens invade a medieval Europe.
I've heard
Super
of that one.
fun.
What?
Super, super wild thing to watch. Yeah. no further explanations on that. But yeah, no. So I've been listening to a lot of synth. I've been listening to a lot of Tangerine Dream because we watched Legend.
Well, now you need to listen to some Goblin.
And yeah, now I've got a new artist to listen to. So I was very much in the headspace to enjoy this movie. So I am actually dialing my rating back a bit when I say it's a 6 because my enjoyment level is probably closer to a 7 at this specific moment in time.
Okay.
Not a mood.
Now, Jeff, I'm curious. Are they going to get the straight 6 across the board, or what are you going to give it?
I think a 6 is probably the most fair rating that you can give this movie.
Okay.
Because
Great.
for as much as it's like definitely objectively not good for the most part, it does manage to just make itself entertaining enough.
Okay. Interesting.
I think a 6 is
interesting that
pretty
you
fair.
think that. You know, I can see why you guys would give it a 6. I mean, the story is bad, the music is bad, the acting is terrible.
Well, wait.
The visuals are really bad.
Whoa.
Everything else was pretty okay.
Man, I strongly disagree on 2 counts at least there. Firstly, the acting. Are you going to say the acting's bad
Yes.
when the opening girl who gets killed looked dead into the camera at least 6 times? You going to say the acting's bad when that happens? You going to say the acting's bad when Donald Pleasance slipped in and out of an accent for every single second he was on
If he
screen?
was Scottish, I lost my mind.
Every accent. That man did all of them.
He's
You going to tell me
got
that's
the
bad
range.
acting? That's the best acting I've ever seen in my
Did
damn
he
life.
even know his character was Scottish until he said the line, "I'm Scottish"? That's my
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. There
Donald
was a
Pleasance
monkey.
is so bad in this movie. He's
The
so
monkey
bad.
did so good.
It's a chimpanzee. No.
The monkey
chimpanzee.
bit off
Why
part
can't
of
you tell the
Jennifer
difference?
Connelly's finger, so I would not be praising it if I were you.
It almost bit her fingers off.
Yes!
Oh my
The-
god!
And he
the
hated her.
The chimpanzee was the best actor in this movie,
And it tried to kill her
and it tried to
did.
kill
in real
her.
life.
It hated her.
I was actually
I
reading
can't
an
wait
older
to hear
review
more of that
said
story.
pretty much exactly that. Like I managed to find a couple of older reviews, and they critics did not like this movie when it came out.
No way.
I'm not sure if you can guess why, but
Maybe it's because it's not that great.
And it's also really, for the time, I would assume, graphic.
1985, Nightmare on Elm Street was already out.
Oh, that's true. We
Was
were
it?
literally talking
That's the weird thing about this
how-
movie is so much of it, other than the soundtrack, which is so like comically 80s that it's like ridiculous. If you look at just like the look and the feel of most of this movie, especially with the dubbing and such, it feels very like 70s to me.
It does. It really does.
And then, I
Yeah.
don't know if that's just the budget showing or something, but
I would like to say, just for clarity of record, I didn't like this movie. I give it a 1 out of 10,
yes, that's
That's
which
fair.
I hope
Fair
is
enough.
the lowest I've given a movie so far.
I love
think-
how consistent it is that on this show, anytime that like me and Noah both really like something, you just completely hate it.
I mean, how is a 6
no.
really liking a movie?
I would not mark this as a really like. I like the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack is good, but I think the soundtrack is very of the era.
Absolutely.
Except for there are 3 uses of licensed songs that make no sense.
Two
no sense at
are
all.
the same song
It's the
by
exact
Iron
same
Maiden.
song,
Yeah.
yeah. And they don't even play
the
like a
same
different
part of the same
section of it.
song.
It's just they start it from the beginning twice.
And it
And then they
doesn't
go through
fit
the whole
the situation at all.
And then there's that Motorhead song that
The
starts
Motorhead
in the
song.
middle. I don't know why he put in a Motorhead song.
It doesn't even make sense in the scene.
It makes me feel closer in
doesn't.
spirit to Dario Argento. Like,
See,
That's
I feel like
important.
I know more of what
That
a
is
person
important.
he is.
That's what he wants. That's why he made opera even. That's what that
So
that
we can
movie is
feel
all
closer to him?
entirely just about himself.
Oh, is that why it's based on an original thought by Dario Argento?
That's
or is
why
that
it
just him
says
being
that at the
pretentious
beginning,
about
yeah.
other movies?
So that movie came out a couple years after this one, and it makes reference back to Phenomena toward the end.
Why?
Because before making Phenomena, he had apparently So the plot of Opera, we're talking about the plot of an entirely different Dario Argento movie in this episode.
Is it better?
I like it a lot better, but it's not as good an introduction. Apparently,
Fair.
though, right before he started working on Phenomena, he was working on an opera, which is the one that you see them working on in the movie Opera, where it's an adaptation of Verdi's Macbeth. But it's like spiced up in a lot of really weird ways where it's like apparently taking place in World War II. Everybody's got guns. There's like a ton of extra violence and nudity in it that like doesn't need to be in there. And that's entirely just a representation of something that Dario Argento was just doing. He was working on an adaptation of Verdi's Macbeth that had a bunch of extra violence and nudity in it to spice it up. And
It's what Macbeth needs.
it's what Shakespeare would have wanted, let's be real. Argento knew that, but everyone
He really
who was
had a
watching
handle on
operas
Argento-
at
or
the
on
time
Shakespeare.
doesn't know that. So they gave him a ton of really terrible reviews and said that he should go back to making horror movies. And in the movie Opera, that's pretty much exactly what his like self-insert character does. He's got this opera that's not doing well with the critics, and then he goes and starts making a horror movie. And the one that they show him making is Phenomena.
Wild.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that weird? Yeah.
That is weird.
Anyways, I'm very distracted today.
Emma, how scary was this movie?
How
Well,
scary
don't we have
was
to
this
watch?
movie?
We have to talk about trigger warnings first.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I scrolled
You-
past them and I did
you
forget. I
silly
didn't write
Billy.
any trigger warnings down because I forgot to.
I'd say body horror
It's a good
at the
bit.
end there.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a
Body
moment
horror.
that could definitely be perceived as being a bit rapey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
yeah.
I would definitely say
It doesn't fully go there, but it feels like it's going to for a minute. And yeah.
Yep. That's probably all I have for trigger warnings, though.
Yeah, it's a pretty run-of-the-mill 80s horror movie when it comes down to it, just
Yeah.
with less nudity
Oh,
than your
I
average
think-
80 flicks.
there's one scene that made me almost throw up.
Oh,
yeah.
the pit.
The
The
pit.
pool.
Oh yeah.
And there's
That
a
was-
lot of insects. That's another one.
Yeah, if you get an
lots of
insect
bugs.
problem,
Just don't watch.
Yeah, don't watch the movie about
Yeah.
insects if you don't like insects.
There's grubs. There's a lot
There's
of
a lot of
maggots and grubs in
maggots.
this.
a lot of
Mhm,
close-up
mhm.
shots of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd
There's
be
a-
my
There's
There's
some really
some
good.
scat.
That's the big like
Yeah.
outside of the normal horror stuff that you got to be aware of, like
Yeah.
gore and whatever. That we usually don't trigger warn on this podcast because it's like you're in a horror movie podcast. These things are
Right,
going to be
it's
there,
kinda-
but bugs aren't necessarily a given,
right.
Yeah.
and maggots definitely aren't a given.
And
So I'll put that out
maggots on incredibly realistic fake heads and stuff. Those
Yeah.
look good.
there. They look
Right?
great.
A lot of real good effects.
That's
in this
my
one.
biggest thing
Um,
about this movie. That I
one
enjoyed
other
was the
trigger,
special
just to
effects.
get out of this segment. There's one scene where Jennifer Connelly's character sticks her fingers down her throat to make herself throw up. That could bother
Oh, yeah.
a lot of people potentially.
What?
Yeah.
How did I miss that?
How did you miss that? It went on for like 3 minutes, dude.
It's a long scene.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, hold on, Noah. Where did you watch it?
On Tubi.
Okay, that's the same place I watched it.
I
That's
watched
weird.
it on Amazon.
How
and it
long was
there.
it?
How long was the movie?
1 hour and 58 minutes.
Mine too.
Okay, so you did get the full length one. I don't know how you missed that scene. What were you paying
I
attention
don't know
to?
either. I don't know.
That's weird. Okay, so I was about to talk about how there are two different versions of this movie, and the one that was originally released in the U.S. Was cut to be about 20 minutes shorter. That's why there's a couple of sections where the dubbing gets all weird and there isn't any English for almost 10 minutes at a time. And then
God, I wish I saw that cut.
I didn't
Suddenly the
know it
dubbing
being
just comes
that
back.
long, but that explains why random lines here and there are undubbed
it suddenly
or
just
dubbed differently.
glaringly Italian or dubbed differently. Yeah. The original American release was an entire 20 minutes shorter, and some scenes were like reordered even. So that might be why a little bit of the story doesn't make much sense either. because this is sort of a recut.
This is the director's edition.
Yeah, you might say that. But yeah,
Interesting.
they straight up just didn't have the English for those sections, which is really odd to me because if you watch Jennifer Connelly's mouth in the one scene, it looks
She's
like
talking
she's
in
still
English.
speaking English. But then they've got the
Yeah.
Italian dubbing over it, and we just don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, with all the dubbing, you know that the set was just loud, and he was like, "All right, and now you say this, and look at the camera when you say it." Right, eye
Well, I
contact
mean-
with the camera, stare it down.
So the thing about Argento movies is he never has anyone speak in a specific language while they're shooting. Everyone just says whatever their line is in whatever language they want to talk. And then all of it just winds up getting dubbed anyway. Because like I think I've heard that he like they don't even bother recording any audio at all while they're shooting. They just
Amazing.
dub everything because it needs to get set out in like 4 different languages anyway.
I love that, and I hate that.
It's
you know?
terrible, right?
I just hate it.
Yeah, it's it's real not good, but it's in such a particular way that I still wind up kind of liking it just as a stylistic thing.
It was always so weird when they switched to like Italian or German or whatever,
Yeah.
because like the audio was different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
audio
then
quality
they
is
were
vastly
recording
different.
everything. They were real inconsistent in like the kind of rooms that they were recording in and stuff.
Oh my
like,
gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they
What-
switch back
Donald
and you're
Pleasance
like, what the
sounds
fuck?
like he's
I-
talking into a can half the time.
Speaking of talking in different languages, there's one scene where they're in the doctor's place and they're like chatting about how the bugs are being weird. And the whole rest of the scene is in English, but she says, probably because of me, in Italian, in the
Yeah.
middle of the scene. That's the only line that's in Italian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What?
I
There's just-
think
And you guys think this is a good movie?
No, I think that this is a fine
I had
movie.
fun with it.
I think what was happening there is like when they were making the dub, they realized that the phrase in English just didn't take as long as it took her to say it on screen. So they just needed to have more words in there to fill the space. Instead of just like, cutting it the way that you might expect that they would.
So,
Yeah.
I really want to get into more talking about this. Emma, could you give us your scary rating?
How scary
Yeah.
is this movie?
Sure. Thanks, Noah. Thanks for asking me what my scary rating is in this segment that we like to call Emma's Scary Rating. The scariest part of this movie is its runtime. It's almost 2 hours, 10 out of 10 scary.
Fair enough.
That's fair.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Oh man, I have to keep
All right.
experiencing this movie for another hour.
Yep, I was constantly looking at the time go by.
Yeah, it kind of drags in the everything
all
up
of
to the
it?
last 20 minutes.
Even the 20 minutes.
Even that last 20 minutes is not as action packed as it could be, but
So,
See, I was watching the clock because I'm like, how much more time do they have to explain this? Okay, they got time.
and then
Okay,
they
they got
don't
time.
explain it.
Okay, they got time. And then the movie's done. And I had to ask Nina because I watched it yesterday. And I have a shaky memory of what it was. And
Right.
Nina finished watching it about 3.5 hours ago.
mhm.
So she probably has a much better idea of what it was. So I'm like, hey, why was this person killing people? And she's like, oh, I thought that was very clearly said. And I'm like, what? And she's like, well, I also read some stuff about the movie and then explained to me what happened. And
It is tough to
I
follow.
still don't follow. I still don't follow.
It doesn't make
Okay.
sense.
Okay. Jeff, why don't you go ahead and give us that spoil summary so we can dive in and talk about this masterpiece of a movie?
Yeah, I hope you're ready.
So there's just so much.
Why did you pick this movie?
Because I want us to be able to cover Suspiria and opera in the future, and we can't get there without
I was
going
gonna
through
say.
this.
We have to start somewhere with this director.
I also do
unfortunately.
want to cover Suspiria at some point. I want us I want us to back it. So you take Suspiria and then I take Suspiria 2018 and make everyone watch 2 Suspirias in a row.
I hate you.
Why not?
The new one's really good.
I actually just found out that there's a sequel to Suspiria.
Suspiria 2? 2 Suspiria for you?
Two sus, two
For
Peria.
you?
No,
Suspiria.
it's Inferno, which came out in 1980. And then there's a third part that just came out like 10 or 15 years ago.
What?
Yeah.
I thought he was long dead.
No, he put a movie out in like 2017.
Why?
He's still doing it. Like,
Is he still alive?
yeah.
He just said that. 2017, Nina.
I mean, he could have died
'Cause-
between then and now.
Well, I mean,
He
it's
made
not
a
like what's his
Dracula
name.
movie.
what was why?
Which one was
I
it?
haven't watched. It's called like Dracula. Like,
It's Dracula Untold.
I think it's something even stupider than that. Actually, I think it's called like Dracula 3D. And this was after 2010. Like, this is in the last
gosh.
12 years.
Oh my gosh. See,
I haven't
'cause
watched it yet,
this
but I
is-
want to so bad.
This is so different than the guy who made Phantasm and recorded all 5 Phantasm movies back to back. So all 5 of them were recorded at the same time and then they were released over the course of like 30 years.
I think that's a pretty weird thing to do, but
I think so too. I think it was budget. I think he blew too much budget recording 5 movies and then didn't have enough money
how
to
much do you
distribute.
know about the process of making Phantasm?
Um,
They shot
less than I think.
that one first movie. They shot that over the course of a year, just filming on the weekends to exploit a loophole in the renting budget, where it's like, like if you rented it over the weekend, you only had to pay for Friday.
Oh
So
my gosh.
to save money on renting his recording equipment, they just only shot on weekends. So they had like a maybe 2.5 day week shooting that movie over the course of an entire year.
That's disgusting.
And you telling me he made
Incredible.
like 5 other movies all from shooting in that same batch? Like,
No,
that
but
would have
he,
been like
he
6
recorded the
straight
first one.
years.
They were all filmed within a few years of each other. So
Okay.
you have like what's his name who played the tall man,
Right,
and
right.
like even though he died,
Yeah, he's been
like,
dead for like 30 years now.
ages ago. They have him in the new movie that came out like within the last 10 years.
Okay. That's kind of neat.
But it's also, we're not here to talk about Phantasm.
No.
Another movie that sure someday we're going to talk about it, but not right now.
Yeah. So,
Give us a spoiler, boy.
okay, so I'm just looking at the plot synopsis on Wikipedia here, and it is too long. I'm going to try and break this down a little bit. So we get like 3 first scenes in this movie. One is with a Danish tourist who gets murdered right away, and she's played by Dario Argento's daughter, Fiore.
Oh, is that why she's such a bad actress?
Yeah, perhaps it's related.
Was he standing right behind the camera and she was looking to him for advice? Because she looked at that camera, like dead at that camera.
kinda did that,
so
yeah.
many times.
But also, it was her
Oh.
whose head went through that window that shattered and fell on her face in slow motion.
Yeah,
That was such a good
Which-
shot.
Looked pretty good.
I thought
it's-
that
He
was
has
a
a-
dumb shot.
I
Okay.
read
Fair
the-
enough.
the-
All
I,
right.
I
It
read
definitely goes
somewhere
on too
that Argento's like ex-wife, who was also Fiore's mom, was a glassmaker or something. So,
Is that why he has so many
Actually-
slow-mo glass breaks in his movies? Because
I
his
didn't know-
ex-wife made glass windows?
His ex-wife was an actress, and she's in this movie as
my
well.
God. Where? Who is
She's
she?
Frau Bruckner, who
The
is at the
principal.
school and who is the serial killer's mom. This is sort of a Friday the 13th kind of a situation.
Also, I really hated that, by the way.
It's
Yeah,
terrible.
no.
It's terrible. We only get like
Nina and I were joking about how this thing did Friday the 13th 5 years after Friday the 13th.
When we got to that part, I was like, did Jeff really do this to me?
it's the same thing again.
I can't believe Phenomena's mom.
Okay, so I just spoiled my own spoiler summary. Dang it.
That's it. There's so little to explain in this movie. It's like,
It's
hey,
I
girl,
don't think
literally-
understanding it
Jennifer
improves
Connelly-
the experience.
Jennifer Connelly has bugs. She
I'm
gets
getting to
bullied
this.
for thinking she has bugs.
I was
and
gonna talk
then
about Donald
she
Pleasance first.
discovers things.
Oh yeah, you should talk about Donald
You
Pleasance.
should. I forgot he was in this movie.
Good old Donnie P,
Yeah,
aka John McGregor.
John McGregor, he's called. So, yeah, in our second opening scene, we are introduced to a secondary main character, I guess, who is played by old Donald Pleasance from Halloween. And he has
Loved every minute he was
he
on
has
screen.
every accent that a man could have. I think the first line that he says, he kind of plays it like a Russian accent. But then moments later, he sounds English, and then he kind of like switches between an Irish and a Scottish accent because he doesn't know
I think
the
that's
difference.
the biggest issue is that he does switch between Irish and Scottish pretty consistently.
I think he
When
does.
he's hitting the right realm of accent, he's not.
Yeah, I've got no idea. But he is an entomologist who has been recruited by the police to attempt to catch a serial killer in the area. And the
Which is-
police just
which is
never
weird in
come back
itself.
into the story.
They never do. They never do.
Which is pretty odd. In our third opening
Isn't like that
scene-
one investigator guy? He
Yeah,
shows up
he's
later
not-
on.
I don't think he's one of the guys from the beginning, though.
Oh.
But in our third opening scene, we see we are finally introduced to our main character, who's played by an extremely young Jennifer Connelly. She was like 14 at the time when they shot
Yep.
this.
Yep.
Who is arriving at this school that is apparently expensive and exclusive or whatever, because her dad, as we find out, is extremely famous for something.
He's an actor.
He's an actor?
Yeah.
Do they actually say that? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she
He's
just
either
has
an actor or a director, but directors don't usually take their clothes off.
Yeah. They usually don't. Anyways, she's got a suitcase full of posters of him for some reason, apparently.
Yep. Uh-huh.
And while she's at the school, she gets introduced to some people who immediately know who she is and just hate her for some reason. We never see her interact with any of her classmates, so I don't know why they all decided to just hate her. But then her roommate gets murdered. She meets the Donald Pleasance character, and he recruits her to help him try to catch the serial killer who is in the area. And this killer gets mentioned infrequently enough over the course of the 2-hour movie somehow that I keep like forgetting that he's actually the focal point of the plot.
Because he's really not.
He's not. He's a non-presence, except for when that Iron Maiden song starts playing out of nowhere. Like,
Man, when that Iron Maiden song started playing, I'm like, huh, this is different. And then
the
Bruce
second
starts singing,
time-
and I'm like, I wonder who this is. That sounds a lot like Bruce Dickinson. And then he says, what is it,
Surprise.
Flash of the Blade?
Yeah.
Is that
It
the
is
name
Flash
of
of the
that's the
Blade.
song, yeah.
And then he says the line Flash of the Blade, and I'm like, oh, I know
Like, oh,
this
that's
is an Iron Maiden
definitely
song.
okay. So anyway, as Jennifer learns more about her psychic link to insects and gets closer to catching the killer, the gulf between her and her classmates just grows and grows, and they hate her so much that they decide to bestow the most horrible insult upon her of all. They all gather around her in a circle and chanted, "We worship you," because
Yeah.
that'll show her.
When I got home from work today, that's the scene Nina was on. And I walk in, I'm like, hey, and I'm just, we worship you. We worship you. And I'm like, oh, that part.
Yep.
I have so many thoughts about that part, but I'll get to them later.
Okay. Eventually, Donald Pleasance gets murdered, and Jennifer Connelly winds up at the home of one of the teachers from the school. and it is revealed to us that her son has been the serial killer the whole time.
Was he though?
And well, it's kind of left a little bit ambiguous whether it was just him or if it was the both of them.
Because I feel like Donald Pleasance was killed by her.
I don't
Yes.
believe so.
No, she literally says at the
She
end
does
that
say it
she
right at the end.
killed
Oh,
She
okay.
does.
him and the investigator.
But
That
then
would do it.
seeing the kid with the spear makes me be like, well, that's the weapon from the whole movie.
From the whole thing.
So
She just
It's-
used a spear.
no, I mean, like, so, like, did he ever kill anyone? Was he one of the ones with the spear?
Yeah, he
That's what-
killed the
he
women.
did just jump right into action as soon as he had the
He did.
opportunity to. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that he's been the one doing most of the kills.
It's probably because Jennifer Connelly screamed when she saw him after saying, "No, it's okay. You don't have to worry about anything anymore." And then he
Well-
turned around and she's like, "Oh, disgusting! I hate you. You're a bug man."
Well, now to
and
be
she
fair,
leaves.
there that seems pretty terrible of her, doesn't it? But consider, before he turns around, it just sounds like a little child voice actor standing in a corner. But then when he turns around, suddenly there's all these like monster sound effects to his breathing and stuff. And
That's
I think
true.
the shift in the sounds is jarring enough to be scary.
Also, the poor girl has been through so freaking much by that point.
Yeah, that's after she
Like-
fell in the corpse pit and all.
It's
Yeah.
the corpse pit. It's seeing a man chained to a wall, and breaking his hands to get out, to
Yeah.
rescue her. She's been through a bit at that.
Yeah.
A bit.
Should
by
we
that
finish that summary though?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so then as she's fighting while one of the cops is fighting Frau Bruckner, she winds up fighting the child on a boat and summons a bunch of bugs to come eat his face off. They eat his face off, he falls into the water. She sits awkwardly in the boat as though wondering what she's supposed to do now. And then the boat catches on fire. The engine in the gas tank explodes. Suddenly the whole pond is on fire. And
I think
I
you're
do like
actually
how you
making
deliver
this
that.
sound even more disjointed than it actually is, which is hard. The gas tank was in fact stabbed during the fight, so it doesn't just explode out of nowhere.
gonna say,
She
it-
tries
Yes.
to start it up after it had been previously been stabbed, and then it explodes.
And at least did not burn out of nowhere like a Simpsons bit.
it would have been better if it did, let's be real.
It would have been funny.
It wouldn't have been out of place with everything else that happened, but there actually was a reason for this one specific thing.
Sure, yeah. Anyways, then while she's swimming away, the child reappears only to die in the fire immediately, causing her to once again just kind of sit there awkwardly as though wondering what to do now. So then she gets back up out of the water and is then greeted by her dad's lawyer, who then immediately gets his head chopped off by Frau
Poor
Bruckner.
Mr. Shapiro.
No, that was Morris.
Oh, whatever.
With a road sign, I think she uses, like a piece of
A
sheet
big
I
metal.
have
sheet of
no
metal.
idea
Yeah.
what that is.
And
or
then
where
she goes
got it.
to try and kill Jennifer with this, and then is killed by a chimpanzee that I neglected to mention earlier in the summary.
The chimpanzee's kind of important.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I am not firing on all cylinders right now, so that's why
Me
this episode is the
too.
way that it is.
No. That's not your fault. That's Dario Argento's fault.
I do think it's my fault, but yeah, it's also Dario's fault. After the chimp kills Frau Bruckner, the movie just sort of ends suddenly,
Yep.
and that's it. We get no closure on anything. We've gotten no
Yeah.
information on hardly anything. We've just got an absolute banger session of a soundtrack and nothing else, really.
I disagree on the soundtrack, but you do you, fam.
Not a Goblin fan, huh? We'll see what you think about Suspiria. I think it's got a really nice soundtrack.
It's
though
the
I do
same
like this
thing,
one for
isn't
the most
it?
part.
It's better done.
The music was constantly out of place for the scene. That
It is
was
very
in.
distracting in this movie. I would grant you that. The music is always very distracting in this one.
Yeah. And a lot of people would say that makes a bad soundtrack.
Yes, but you got to not think like a regular person and think like a Dario Argento, which is, I don't even know. Is he an alien of some sort? His dialogue and his stories just never make any sense.
Yeah. Can I talk about some of the things I hated about this movie?
I would absolutely love it.
Some of the
if you would tell
specific
us
things,
all
because
about the
then
things that
I
you hate.
really need to understand why you guys enjoyed this movie.
Yeah.
So obviously the terrible acting, that's a pretty consistent thing throughout my notes. Yes, audience, I actually took notes to keep track of all the things that I hated about this movie because they were constant.
I've got the most notes that I've ever had of any movie that we've done. I've got like 2 full pages.
Yeah. So, I complain about the acting a lot. The girl at the beginning was a terrible actress. We already went through that. The reason I hated the window scene was not because it was bad, which it was. But like, I understand it's in slow motion or whatever, but her head barely taps the glass and then it just shatters. And I'm like,
That's true. It's probably sugar glass.
Yeah, and
it fell right down on her eyes,
right
too.
onto her eyes. If that was real glass, she would have been dead.
Yeah, I just was like, that's very, very, very obviously fake, and that was done really poorly.
Yeah, if it would have been like quicker cut, maybe it could have been good, but
my next note was that monkey got a booty, but it was a weird booty.
The chimp just has its ass out the whole time.
I could not wow. I think it's got to be like a tumor or something, because I've seen chimpanzees before and they have not had that going on.
Yeah, I don't think they typically
prolapsed.
I don't think that's prolapse.
I hope. Oh, ugh.
It's just
there's something up with that though. Yeah,
this is just
I tried looking it up and I could not find anything about it apart from the fact that's how I found out that the monkey bit part of Jennifer Connelly's finger off.
Wow, incredible. Also, don't keep chimps as pets, people.
No,
like
just
that's just not a good idea.
It's not a good idea. They'll get mad and rip your balls off.
Yeah, or your face
bite
off.
through your finger.
Or bite through your finger or your face. Yeah.
Which is also why, because chimps are very, very strong. Why did that fucking thing need a small, like, scalpel to just, like, cut the woman
what was that
at
thing
the end?
doing in the garbage can?
A full-blown straight razor in the garbage can.
Because that's a scene where the chimp is just, like, sad, wandering the countryside,
where he's like,
eating garbage like you do when you're sad. And she just finds a straight razor in the trash can? Like, what?
I made a note there saying, is this where we're going to find out the chimp became a sad alcoholic? But no, it's where the chimp got a murder weapon.
It would have made more sense if we got a subplot where the chimp became an alcoholic. That would be easier to follow.
My favorite thing is when the chimp was introed, though, and Donald Pleasance takes the scalpel saying, "What? No, look at this," and tries to cut through a piece of paper, but it's the dullest thing on planet Earth. And he's just like, "See? It's so sharp." And he eventually just rips the page.
Yeah, you can
on
see.
camera. You can see him just tear it. And he's like, "See how sharp this is? Don't touch." It's just like, what are you doing?
Also regarding the monkey, there was that scene where the chimp, this was after the doctor was killed, and the chimp is chasing down the killer and jumps on her car and is like trying to break the front window, and then the killer like slightly swerves and the monkey falls off. And I'm like, for one, a chimp would absolutely be able to destroy the front windshield of a car.
Yes.
Pretty quickly. And two, you are not getting a chimp off of the top of a car, especially because it had like rails on the side.
Oh, if they've got something to hold on to, there's no way.
Yeah, there's zero chance. And they just constantly like made this chimp super weak when I'm like, chimps are fucking strong. And it was really, really annoying. Obviously, I had a problem with the dub. The first time the dub happens, it's the girl's roommate saying something.
Yeah.
And it's just very obvious, like, the girl, like, says, just basically moves her lips, like, twice. And then the line goes for, like, 3 seconds. And so for part of it, her lips aren't even moving. And it's just really bad. the dialogue throughout the movie is really clunky
It's
and
very
weird.
weird. It's very weird.
But there's one specific part that I highlighted where, so for one, Jennifer Connelly's character has a shit ton of posters of her dad shirtless for some reason.
For some reason, yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Really weird.
What?
Who has posters of their fucking dad? But then her and her roommate are talking about it, and the roommate's like, I know everything about you. Haha, your parents left you when you were 7. And the girl's like, no, they left me when my mom left when I was 8. And she's like, ha, no, you were 7. And then Jennifer Connelly's character starts talking about like the night the mom left, and like it's
What was it,
supposed
like
to be this
Christmas
really
Eve,
like,
right?
yeah, it's like Christmas. She's like being really emotional and down as she's telling the story or whatever. And then she finishes it, and the roommate immediately, like basically not even a second after the story ends, is like, I'm so glad you're here and my roommate. And
then she
Yeah.
says, there's a serial killer in town.
there's a serial killer in town.
And Jennifer
and it's
says,
just like,
I'm going to bed.
it's just like, what is this dialogue progression?
Also, why did the roommate have 2 jars of baby food?
Why?
Yeah, and
It was
why
It's
three, wasn't it?
explained why.
It was 3.
That's
and
one of the
why
few things that's explained.
But
Yeah,
the
it's like
explanation doesn't make any sense.
her parents came to visit her with her baby brother and left 3 jars of baby food on accident.
Yeah,
But
and there was
also,
like meat and vegetable and I guess another one that I don't remember. And she's just like, oh, that's okay. I'm a vegetarian, and starts
I'm a
eating green baby
vegetarian.
food.
Off the handle of a toothbrush.
and she likes
Yeah.
it. She likes
And
the
she
baby
says she
food.
likes it.
And
Did she? Because I thought she said it tasted
She-
bad.
Well, and also
No,
the
she said
happy
it
voice.
tasted like cat food, but she had a very obvious, satisfied, happy expression on her face
Well,
as
and
she was
also, like,
eating
she
it.
Tastes like
jumps
cat
to
food.
eating it the moment that she sees them. Like, she doesn't even ask, can I have one? She just sees the jars of baby food on the dresser and says, what are these? And then she picks one up and says, I'll need a spoon. Like,
Yes.
It's the only time someone like eats something in the movie as well. Apart
Yeah.
from the monkey
yeah.
like drinking whatever the hell out of the trash can. So
Yeah.
like why did they mention she's a vegetarian except to like
never
add
comes
to the
back.
fact that she's like a humanitarian kind of
it
person?
never
Yeah.
comes back. It
She
never
like-
matters.
she
There are
like
so many
insects.
things that keep getting brought up that, like, don't wind up coming back. They don't matter.
I was
So-
a huge fan of when she first arrived at the boarding school, and the director is just like, you are late, and so angry. And then there's this dramatic zoom in on Jennifer Connelly. She's like, my plane was late because of bad weather.
Teehee. Yeah.
See, I thought when you said when she first arrives at the school, I thought you were going to talk about the narration that's there for like 2 lines.
yeah.
And then never
No, that
comes
was-
back.
I
It
forgot
just
about
happens
that.
once, like 25 minutes into the movie. And then
Yeah.
it never comes back.
They got like the movie trailer guy to like say 2 lines of dialogue for this one scene of narration that was
Yeah.
not necessary at all.
And that's another one of
Um,
those common beats in Argento movies. There's one of those in Suspiria as well. Just
Yeah.
2 lines of narrator and then
Um,
nothing.
Okay, so you had mentioned you weren't sure why all the girls at the school hated her like right off the bat.
Right.
It's because like the first day she got there, she like immediately went to her room / went to bed, and then she sleptwalked, and news of that went around, and people thought she was crazy.
Mm.
So that's why
right.
they
I
were picking
completely
on her.
forgot to
That's
mention the
implied-
sleepwalking
and
plot because that's
the
the other
other-
thing that happens and then never comes back.
The other huge implication of the people not liking her is that the one girl's Sophie, her boyfriend is immediately more interested in Jennifer than in Sophie. This is like one of my major complaints with this movie, and it's a complaint I have with Carrie and basically any 80s horror movie or movie in general where a girl is bullied, is that male directors generally do not get how girls bully each other.
No.
It's way more like Mean Girls and stuff like that was my experience in school, where they're really, really nice to your face, but then they get 5 feet away from you and they all start giggling amongst each other. And
Yeah.
that's how they get to you, is that you cannot trust anything they say after that point.
It's not like what
And
we
you
see
know it.
in this movie where they get her attention and then like stick their tongues out at her and walk away.
Exactly. And then
Yeah.
they all are like, "Oh, you're like the bug queen. Oh, now we're all gonna pretend to be bugs." There's a really popular anime bullying stereotype where whenever a girl is trying to talk to a group of other girls, in order to ostracize her, they'll be like, "Oh my god, do you hear that fly? It's so loud," and they'll ignore her. This is the opposite of that. This
Yeah.
is like that flipped on its head. I
Yeah.
did not like that at all. It was super dumb, and I'm like, wow, you don't know how this works, Steve.
Yep. Okay.
If only Dario
so-
could have seen Mean Girls before making this
I
movie.
know he would have had a revelation.
To continue, she goes to bed the first night, is having a nightmare, and it kind of made me think like there was this weird dream sequence happening, because like she's like stirring and is having a nightmare at the same time that it's showing this girl being hunted in like the building over by the killer.
Yeah.
And so I was really confused. I was like, is she just having a nightmare and is seeing this? But it was also a really weird sequence of her having a nightmare where I was like, I'm not sure if they're trying to show her having a nightmare or if she's like having an orgasm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then
that's a confusingly shot scene, yeah.
Then she starts sleepwalking and like
It's not clear when exactly in the sleepwalking scene she wakes up.
yeah, she like sleepwalks and like runs into the dead girl and then like calmly walks away from the dead girl after screaming and falls through the roof. But lands in the bushes and then suddenly she has dark vision.
Yeah.
And like if you've seen the movie you know what I mean, but basically after she falls from the bushes everything is like really bright and she can see everything.
Yeah.
And it made me think of, there's like a meme in the D&D community where like the DM will be describing like a scene or darkness and the players just interrupt and they're like, I have dark vision. And so I wrote in my notes, I was like, so it's dark as you look at the house to see if you can spot anything. And then the players are like, I have dark vision. And then she runs into some German guys who accidentally kind of graze her with their car because she's standing in the middle of the road.
It's
and
a
they're
miracle
trying to
they were
like,
the first one to do that.
yeah, they're trying to help her, and she's like really awkwardly like fighting them, and then gets away from them.
So
And
I have
then
a
the
question
monkey
about
shows
that
up.
scene.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that scene.
Yeah, why is that happening?
So when she, no, when she gets hit by the car, is that when her talking to bugs materializes when she wakes up from her sleepwalking from getting hit by a car?
It's
No.
all
No.
but
Because-
said that is because
Well-
Loomis.
Yeah, no, because
McGregor.
Donald Pleasance makes his mention of when I was hit by a car, it took away my legs, but when you were hit by a car, it unlocked great gifts or whatever it is that he
but
said
she
there.
says in the scene where she gets introduced, there's the bee in the car and the driver and the what's her name are acting in a way that no sane
Right,
But that
right,
could
right,
be
right.
like
Whatever actor would be in the
foreshadowing
car.
that that's like the
But
thing that
there's-
can be unlocked by trauma.
Yeah, because
which is,
what I'm saying is there's a difference between her being friendly with bugs and the first time a bug looks at her and says, hey, this is what I'm thinking.
Hmm.
Because the bugs never did that before.
yeah,
Okay.
Did the bugs
Yeah, that's
ever
true.
like actually telepathically communicate with her? Because I thought they just
Not that
like
we're
came
really
to her
shown.
aid and like
I thought the
directed
maggots straight up telepathically blasted an image of Sophie's dead body into
Yeah,
her mind.
That did happen.
That did
yeah.
happen. Also, I kind of got the idea that every time we got the 6 eye frame, where it was like little 6 hexagon eyes,
Yeah.
mhm.
that I always assumed
happens
that
twice.
was. I always assumed that was the bug showing her what it was seeing, not just the bug looking at her.
Perhaps. It's a confusing
Um,
movie. You might be right.
I choose to be
Are
right.
we, Emma, are you still sharing things that you hated or?
Yes, I am.
This is a long.
Because
segment.
eventually I would
So
like to
while
talk
she's
about that. I
visiting with-
enjoyed it.
While she's visiting with the bug doctor, he gives her a bug to like crawl around on her, and it's really awkward. And he's like, "Oh, that bug! You're making that bug horny. That
Yeah.
it's like
hated that
spurting its
so
love
much.
juices all over you. This is
I
so
hated that
weird.
so much.
OMG, haha, it's so horny."
And her
Weirdest
reaction
fucking
is just
thing.
like, "Huh?" And we only just met.
Yeah, yeah.
Literally did not like that.
That's weird, right? I'd forgotten
so
about that
funny.
scene.
Yep. And then she gets back to the school, and in the morning, they're like, "You're the first girl to ever sneak out of here at night," which is obviously not true because her roommate sneaks out literally the next scene. But we won't get into that for now. They hook her up to an EEG because they're like, "We need to figure out what's going on with your sleepwalking because this could manifest into split personalities or schizophrenia." And they hook her up to an EEG and turn it on, and she immediately starts like shaking around and doing all this bullshit. And I'm like, that's not how an EEG works.
Yeah, me
And then-
too, right?
And then she stands up and very calmly says, "I won't be doing this anymore," and then runs out. But
Yes.
oh my gosh, the ADR in this movie is so bad.
It's so
read
bad.
there's like some really bad books that I have watched YouTubers like read and talk about. And one of them's like called Empress Teresa or whatever, and it's about a girl who's perfect and communicates with aliens. And that scene felt like one of the scenes from that book where she's just like, "Actually, I won't be doing this anymore," and then like runs off and no one stops her. It's just like
Yep. Then there's the awkwardness between the roommate and her boy toy because they meet up outside at
And-
night to
and,
make out or whatever.
Like moments later, he's like, "I really have to leave."
He's like, "I gotta go. I'm getting deployed in the morning." And she calls him a shit. And he's like, "What did you say?" And she's like, "I said, fuck you." And then he's like, forget about it. And then he walks away. And that
it
was just
never
like
comes
such an
back.
awkward thing. Never
Yeah.
comes up. She gets killed. Then there's the awkward scene where Jennifer Connelly's character discovers the glove in the trees. And there's just that really awkward, terrible music that doesn't fit the scene at all.
Yeah.
And then that's where I stopped watching last night. And so today I stopped taking notes. So now my
Okay.
notes my complaints aren't going to be as specific to each scene.
Oh, that's fine.
But I still have a lot to complain about. So, she gets a special fly to help her find the dead bodies that are being hidden. And she
'Cause
goes...
that's how flies work.
Because that's how flies work,
Of course.
as we know. That's what all the scientists know.
And that lady on
And-
the bus hated that window being down.
Yep, she
She
did.
was so angry about that.
She's so angry about the window. But they make it seem this house is way outside of town. Which is weird, because, like, how is that fucking kid getting back here to hide all these goddamn bodies?
Because he can
And
drive
what
the
was the-
car.
What was that kid doing there in the first place at the beginning of the movie to kill that one girl?
Was
Yeah,
the
because we
kid
see him
there
like
even?
breaking out of the chains on the wall in that
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah.
That's pretty
what was
weird. huh?
that?
Why
No idea.
Why were they there?
I've got no idea.
Like, what the fuck? Then the realtor just happens to come by and is like, "What are you doing here?" And then that investigator's also there at the same time for some reason.
It
and-
seemed like he was stalking her.
Yeah. Also, at the very beginning of the movie, so the beginning of the movie, this is where the first girl dies. And it's because she misses her bus with what I imagine is like a school group or something.
Uh-huh.
It's like a bunch of kids that go to this bus stop, like in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
The only thing around is grassy hills and this one house. Why are all those kids there?
No
Why
idea.
are they at that bus
Yeah,
stop?
like why is the
I think it
bus
was the
stopping in
waterfall.
there? Yeah.
That's
it's-
gotta be my guess, is because it seemed like she knew
Yeah.
the trail around the waterfall, so maybe they like were on a school trip to see the waterfall.
Maybe.
and they were there
Um,
for about 4 seconds before driving away.
Yep, they were there for 4 seconds. Then there was the end where she's fighting the little kid, which I literally was laughing out loud at,
Yep.
as the little kid just kind of like jumps onto the boat with this long ass spear. It's trying to stop her.
The spear, which is snapped together out of a series of extenders on a knife.
Yep.
The spear
and-
looks like it would fold if you kind of just pushed against it.
Yep. And then, so he gets knocked into the water, and then she jumps into the water when the engine's about to explode. And then he grabs her from under the water and is like wrestling with her, trying to stab her, or kill her, or drown her, or whatever. She breaks free and swims up to the surface, and suddenly he's in the fire and she's safely like 30 feet away from him
Somehow. Yeah.
somehow. And he burns up. And then the mom shows up at the very end out of nowhere when there's 2 minutes left of the movie just to kill the lawyer. And
And deliver all the explanation that makes the whole plot make sense, and the whole plot literally would not make sense without it.
yep.
Except
Then
even with it, the
also-
plot just doesn't make any sense.
Still doesn't really make sense. Then there's the scene where the mom kills Bug Doctor, where Chimp is freaking out because she gets locked out of the house and is kind of tearing into a window to get back in. Doctor is like, "What's going on?" And he's riding his like little elevator thing down the stairs. And the killer is right at the bottom of the stairs and presses the stop button. And he's like, "Why did this stop?" And he's like looking around and then trying to get it to work again when she's literally right at the bottom of the stairs, no more than 10 feet away.
Yeah.
And
And he doesn't
This
have
movie,
any
y'all.
lights on for some reason.
he doesn't have any lights on, but there's light coming from outside.
The whole room is very well lit, but he can't see shit.
Yes, exactly.
He's going down, and then someone at the bottom of the stairs presses the button. He's like, "What? What stopped my lift?"
Yep. And then
Yeah.
she dies. And I think that's where I'm going to end my complaint session for now. I'm sure as we
Alright.
talk more, I'm
I
going to
hope more
remember more
comes
to
out.
complain
I
about.
hope more
I
comes
am
out.
so excited to bring up the thing that made me laugh my ass off.
Okay, I'm ready.
I can't wait to talk about why I liked this movie. but you
I'm
guys-
excited
Yeah,
to hear
I-
that too.
I need you guys to talk about why you liked this movie, because after everything I just explained, I could not see how anybody enjoyed this.
All right, so I thought the funniest thing I've ever seen was when the lawyer is coming down the slope and it's such a close shot, and I'm like, he's about to die. But how is he about to die? And then it goes back to Jennifer, and I'm like, okay. And then it goes back to him, and he's still not dying. And I'm like, maybe he's not. Goes back to her, then it goes back to him, and then he's just
And his
decapitated
head gets
out of
chopped off just
nowhere.
like that.
I laughed so,
so
hard.
funny,
It was
right?
the funniest thing I've ever seen. I'm just like, I can't believe, like, I saw it coming, but I had no idea it would be so funny. And then this piece of sheet metal that was sharp enough to cut his head off in a single swing, like bone and all,
Yeah.
right off. She's leaning on Jennifer's neck, and it's not doing anything.
Yep.
Well, that was the dull
And she's just
side.
like, "I'm gonna kill you for killing my boy." I guess I don't fully remember. And then
Yeah,
Monkey
that's
came
pretty
out of
much it.
nowhere and was just like, "Bap."
Yeah. Yeah, it's
But
then
need
the
I
movie's just
remind you,
done.
the
there's another
monkey,
bit where what's that?
the monkey didn't like outpower her or anything with the chimp strength.
Nope, it was
No.
a
It
knife.
had this dull
It had a
scalpel
knife.
and was scratching the mom with it, and the mom freaked out and dropped the sheet metal and then fell on the ground,
and just kind of
and
died.
then the monkey just kind of kept scratching her face, and then she died.
It was a riveting scene, really.
It was great,
riveting.
beautiful shot.
See, the scene that I thought was the funniest is when the scene where like the headmistress leaves her with that like nurse who falls asleep immediately, and she has to like
Immediately.
try and slowly and
Yeah.
quietly take out her IV, and she's like ripping the tape off of her skin slowly, and then she like she finally stands up and like almost knocks over the IV stand. And then that scene just feels like something out of like The Naked Gun or something.
Yeah, she like
She
So
almost knocks
funny.
over the thing and she stops it. Then she like almost knocks something else off of a dresser and catches it. She knocks the knitting needle down off the arm of the couch and it lands end first in the ball of yarn. And she's like, oh. And then
the cuckoo clock.
clock goes off across the room.
and this lady's still sleeping.
It's like a cartoon. It's ridiculous.
And then she just leaves and she goes to the bank. So here's an issue I had, right? The timeline of this movie is so ambiguous.
Right?
You get
Yeah.
a lot of like you have a lot of like Donald Pleasance being very specific about his days where they're like, so the body's been about 8 months. And he's like, no, maybe you forgot. It's been very cold and windy, so the body may have come up sooner. And they're like, all right, so 7 months. No, you're forgetting this. And it's just like, okay, dude. So it was like they guessed a week off. When it came down to it, they were with it. So somewhere between these 4 days, exactly. It's like, dude, they were already within those 4 days with their first guess. What are you on?
Yeah.
And oh, I love that so
And
much.
if all the bodies are coming up in the same 52-kilometer stretch of road that
Yeah.
he keeps talking about, why does it matter to within a couple of days when it happened if they know exactly where it keeps happening?
Like, if they can get it narrowed down to within 2 weeks, they should be able to notice, yeah, so a school class who came through here, they reported a missing person in the same time frame. Well, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that
Well,
hard.
and also once he is working with the police on this project,
yeah.
but when he starts getting evidence of like who's the killer and where they are and stuff, he doesn't call the police and let them know what he's
Yeah.
discovered. He sends
No,
a 14-year-old girl
He
to go
trusts
do it
the
herself,
world's greatest detective.
which is a 14-year-old
A girl and a
and
bug.
a fly.
Okay,
Because that makes sense.
I'm going to now interrupt
Yeah.
because I
Yes.
think it's a good time.
Please do.
So remember how I specifically mentioned Crawl at the beginning of this episode?
Yes.
No.
In Crawl, the hero uses a boomerang that is a circle of blades that he cannot really hold well to defeat aliens that cannot be defeated by basically anything else. When I tell you that is the state of mind that I was in going into this movie, I hope that helps you understand why I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I feel like when I was a kid, I used to think that like 80s horror was the most 80s horror and fantasy was like the most incomprehensible thing. I could not enjoy it. I got the same feeling watching it that like some people get when they watch like The Room. Like the bad stuff was just bad to me.
Right.
But as I've gotten older, and I have befriended a specific coworker who's really into this kind of thing. His name's Dante. He's really cool. I have like slowly gotten this like huge appreciation for movies that just don't give a shit. Like they do not care
Yeah.
enough to make sense. Why is there aliens? Doesn't matter. Why is there a cyclops and a wizard and a woman who lives in a web, and if she tries to leave it, a crystal spider will come and eat her? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. We're here to have fun. With synth blaring in the background and Tim Curry in a giant demon costume. That's like the era that this movie is from. And so, like, especially since Jennifer Connelly's in it, and the synth starts playing and I know she's in it, I immediately like slipped into the same kind of mindset that I was in watching like Labyrinth recently. So I was like, just prep to kind of have a good time and not give a shit. And I think that's why I had such a good time with this movie is like, yeah, none of it makes sense, but neither does anything in a lot of the other movies from this era that I've watched recently. Princess Bride is like the only movie from that like group of movies that like actually kind of makes sense, but that's because it's poking fun at all the others. But yeah, that's my long-winded explanation of why I absolutely enjoyed this movie.
My short-winded explanation is I like bad things.
Yes, we know, Jeff.
That's about the exact. That's just what I said, but like without all of the bullshit.
I'm not pretending that it makes me a better person. I just like stuff that sucks.
Oh yeah, no, I'm with you there because I like that's how like I feel about not only this group but like X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is like one of my favorite superhero movies. As someone who has read a lot of Wolverine comics, so don't come for me. I am like an actual Wolverine fan. I just like that movie. Yeah, it's bad. Yes, Will.i.am is in it, but I still love it, and I think I should be allowed to.
Oh, you're a Wolverine fan? Name 3 claws.
Like 3. I'm sorry.
I don't get it.
So Noah, what was your favorite thing
about
this ridiculous movie that we've watched?
So I actually learned something while watching this movie. I didn't know that Beelzebub translated to Lord of the Flies before.
You didn't?
You didn't?
No, I don't know
That's
how.
surprising.
That's really wild to me, actually.
I knew that.
Well, whoop-de-doo for you, Jeff.
Also, they said it weird. They were like Beelzebub or Beelzebub. Yeah, there it is, Beelzebub, which probably more accurate, but
I don't think
I'm not gonna say Beelzebub.
Yeah.
You're not
I
gonna
really
say
did enjoy.
Boob?
I'm not gonna say
Bowser
Bowser Boob. No, I really enjoyed how they implied that because she was sleepwalking, that she was actually the devil.
Well, no. The sleepwalking made them think
Like,
that she was probably crazy. It
But
was
then, like,
the liking
the
insects
flies-
that made them think that she was Satan.
No, they
Yeah.
didn't start saying she was Satan until like all of those flies attacked the building.
Which was pretty weird, to be fair to them.
But
a lot of
also,
flies.
like,
She tried to tell him, to be fair.
they made fun of her and they mocked her, and the headmistress came in. She's like, "Stop!" And they didn't stop. And then suddenly, after they like had all this happen, suddenly there were bugs, and it's like, you know what? I cannot feel bad for anyone here because everyone in the situation sucks.
They can't.
If this was an "Am I the asshole?" it would be everyone's the asshole.
Yeah.
No one here is good.
No, not really. No.
Can I complain about 2 other things?
Please.
Go for it.
I am
Now that
begging
I've
you
gone
to
on
complain
my
about
bad
more things.
80s movies diatribe.
So another thing. So she goes to the bank.
Oh, I love the bank
After
scene.
a bunch of
This is
shit
amazing.
happens.
This is another part where I had issue with the ambiguous timeline because she got to the bank.
This is why I
Yeah.
thought of it, because she calls her dad's lawyer and is like, "People are trying to kill me here. Like, I want out. Send me money so I can get a ticket home." And so she goes to the bank so that she can receive the transfer. And there's nothing happening. And the guy's like, "Ooh, sorry, nothing's come in." She's like, "Okay, I'll just sit here and wait." And so we don't know how long it's been, but it's been no more than a few hours when Frau Buka, or whatever her name is, comes and picks her up and is like, "Oh, your dad's attorney called me to come get you. Blah, 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 blah." And then all the end stuff happens where she fights the little kid and has to escape the mom. And it's like later that night when the attorney has flown into Sweden to come and get
Switzerland.
her. Switzerland, yes, thank you. From America. I'm like, there is zero way you get a call at, let's say, 2 p.m, get a flight to go to Switzerland, get there, like get a car, drive to this rural part of Switzerland.
The car rental guy actually finds him in the airport.
yeah, get to this like really obscure place, happen to find Jennifer Connelly's character to die in maybe 8 hours.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
No.
You know what else doesn't make sense? Why can she control bugs?
Well,
Well,
it's
but that's like
perfectly normal
asking-
for an
Actually,
insect to
that's
be
one of those things where-
telepathic.
Well, see, that's actually one
What
of the
is-
things that I like about this movie. This is an era of movie that, like, the movie starts with a statement, and the statement is not normal, but that is the normal bar that you get to experience the rest of the movie with. It's like, the movie starts with, and as we all know, bugs are telepathic and this girl can speak to them. And we're like, oh,
Like, yeah, of course.
yeah, I know that. And then we start and we build from there. And that's something I actually do kind of miss about older movies where it's like, hey,
You've got some vague scientist
you don't
character
get
who
to-
says something ridiculous and you just have to
no,
accept
not
it.
even a scientist guy. You just have a statement that is made, and the statement is just like this thing, and you don't get the backstory, you don't get the explanation why. It just is. And I do kind of like that. I would
It's
not like
fun.
if every movie returned to it,
Ooh.
but there is a certain amount of fun to, and as we all know, bugs. And
And then everyone
Telepathic. It's
bugs,
sarcophagus
applause.
fly.
I've written a book about it. Here you go.
My name's John McGregor.
I'm Dario Argento. Bugs, right? And everyone's like, "Woo!"
Bugs. What are they good for?
What is the deal with the Great Sarcophagus?
I wish he would stop calling it the Great Sarcophagus.
He kept
I
calling
wish
it
I
the Great
understood.
Sarcophagus.
Yeah.
So if I understand correctly,
Yeah.
you guys enjoy this film because it comes from this era of weird, wacky, makes no sense 80s movies. And it just kind of reminds you of that era. And so you're chill with it?
I just enjoy
Is that like the
Argento's
TLDR?
specific flavor of weirdness.
Yeah,
I
Like,
don't
I
admit
like the
everything
fact
I
that it
watched to-
sucks in a very particular way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
How about
'cause-
how about this? How about this, Jeff? Help me out. Help me out. You keep referencing Dario Argento's weird
Yeah.
flavors of what classifies, like if you were to distill Dario Argento down to a certain number of things
Yeah.
that he's known for or that you see in this movie, what are those things?
Probably big pieces of glass breaking. Because that's a consistent theme
It's
I've
less
noticed.
glass breaking and more just a focus on shiny killing things.
Those
You know, because
scissors
every
at the
time we
beginning
see that
were
knife with its
clean.
triple extender
Oh, the
handle,
scissors.
the blade is always like really shiny and the light's hitting it just right. And they use like
Yeah.
a higher quality of camera for that shot than they do for the entire rest of the movie. We see those scissors that Fiore Argento gets stabbed through the hand with, and they're like
Man, I love
polished
those.
to a mirror finish, and they're
So
always
they
catching
were
the
the
light just
prettiest
right.
scissors I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's those sorts of images of your killing implements is a very big thing. He plays with lighting and in his visual effects a lot in a way that I don't see a lot of directors of that era doing. So I think that's also a thing. That's showcased far more in Suspiria than it is in
I was
this
gonna
one.
say the lighting and composition in Suspiria is
Yeah.
jaw dropping.
Yes,
The opening
that's
scene-
part of the reason that I want to be
Ooh.
covering other Argento movies before hitting Suspiria, because it's got so much to appreciate about it, and you don't want to get tripped up by all the other weird stuff like the dubbing, which is really poorly done. But the way that, like the combination of the way the dubbing is done and just the way that the lines are written in a way that like nobody would ever talk is just kind of part of the appeal of Argento's movies.
Okay.
And just the way that like most of the movie is like relatively normal with just a weird thing being said here and there up until like the final 20 minutes of the movie where everything that just goes absolutely batshit insane. That happens in most of his movies as well.
Okay. this may just be a thing of, we all know Nina doesn't like slasher movies. We know I don't like sharks. And we know I also probably won't like Dario Argento movies.
I cannot argue with that.
I'm gonna try not to be bitter or too judgmental when you bring up a new Dario Argento movie for us to watch, but it may just happen.
I will never claim that they are good, just that they are very interesting and entertaining.
Okay.
I think I would claim some of them are very good though, because not in the sense that maybe it's always like great to watch, but I feel like it's one of those things where, I mean, it is well documented that I have great disdain for old things and not a lot of respect for old things.
Hell yeah.
In like the realm of classic rock, for example.
Mood.
However,
Yeah, Noah says fuck AC/DC.
How dare you, Jeff? I love AC/DC. I love that album. You know the one.
That
but
one
also,
song is the best.
You know it. I know you know it. You know. But a lot of bands that I do not care for, I'll still acknowledge that they're like really important and stuff. And I feel like this guy's movies, maybe not all of them, maybe not even this one, but like there's a lot of 80s horror that I do not like, but I still think is really important because it helped shape where the genre is at now.
Yeah.
And I feel like this very squarely lands in that realm of, oh, this is very specifically, this is like a detective slasher, right? Like it's...
Yeah. And that's how most giallo movies play.
Mm-hmm. If this were made in America, it would not have had nearly the same amount of gore in it, and it wouldn't be a horror movie anymore.
No.
This would be, this is Seven. But
Seven was exactly what I was thinking. Seven, or what was the other one we watched? The spider one?
Along Came a Spider.
Yeah, that thing.
Mm.
This is a Morgan Freeman detective movie that missed the mark. But I don't know. I feel like a lot of these older horror movies, even when I don't really care for them, I do like this one. So this is not the one I'm talking about, but there's a lot that I don't care for, but I really am glad that I still saw them for the weight that they carry in the world of horror, I guess.
Yeah.
And not like Halloween, where I like gave it 10 stars and then bumped it back down because I'm like, actually, it's very important, but I don't like it that much.
Well,
I don't know.
I can, speaking of the influence that Phenomena had on the horror world.
Oh yeah, Nina told me about something today.
Yeah, so this is something that, like, the opening scene where she got stabbed with like the pair of scissors or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I immediately thought, oh, this reminds me of the game Clock Tower. And I looked into it, it's literally the main inspiration for Clock Tower, to the point where the main character of Clock Tower's name is Jennifer Simpson. Clock Tower, for those who don't know, I know it was on Super Famicom. I don't know what other systems, if any, it was on. Is a pixely as hell J-horror game where you play Jennifer Simpson, who's running around a mansion getting chased by a small person with a giant pair of scissors, and he's just trying to stab her. It's very hard to beat. There are a lot of other games that came after it that kind of stepped away from the original inspiration, but it's really, really fun, and I think it's pretty influential in like the horror game community. So that's like really interesting to me, that this like 1985 really weird horror movie has this long-lasting of an effect in the gaming world. I just think it's really cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I think it inspired Harry Potter a little bit as well.
In what way?
In the fact that Harry
Young
Potter
rich
also
kid
sucks.
goes to an exclusive school, finds that a bunch of people hate her for no reason. Also, she's rich for reasons.
I mean, yeah.
I don't know. I think you're
just
stretching a little bit.
It's stretching. Because, like, so I forget exactly what it's called, but there's this thing where it's like there are only really X number of stories that can be told. And it's like 40 something. And everything is just kind of a like twist on those. And in the same way, I think there are just story beats that are like popular. Girl going to unfamiliar school, having a rich parent isn't too far out that I think like anytime that comes up, it must be a reference to X.
Also, I just don't feel like JK is a Dario Argento fan. Personally. Old Joan Cohn just doesn't strike me as a
I mean, that's
a
fair, but
fan
she
of
did get
Italian
the name
horror.
Harry Potter from like was it Trolls 2?
Did she?
Yeah, there's a character named Harry Potter.
wow.
Are you
Oh.
fucking
Apparently.
with me?
Yeah. I
That
have not
sounds
seen it
interesting.
myself. But apparently there's a
Interesting.
character named Harry Potter in it.
Whack.
I'm gonna have to Google this real quick.
Also, I did want to mention, because I mentioned this to Noah earlier, that there was a YouTuber who went into depth about the Clock Tower game series. It's Nitro Rad, I'm pretty sure, is the one that I watched. He did a kind of overview of all 4 of the Clock Tower games. So if you're at all interested in this series, go ahead and check those videos out.
Huh. That's cool.
Yeah. All I do is watch YouTube videos and listen to podcasts. So if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably like me, and so you should go check those out.
Oh, it was a movie called Troll.
Troll.
Yeah, where there was a character named Harry Potter Jr. And they claimed that J.K. Rowling must have gotten that name from her.
That's
or from them.
super funny.
I think
I
she
believe them.
denies it, doesn't she?
I
She'd
think
be a
so.
fool not to.
Darn, I was gonna say something, but I don't remember what it was anymore.
Okay.
Should I read
think it
Noah's
was-
notes, or
I think it was shitting on this movie more.
Probably. What did you think of
let's-
the effects?
Terrible.
even the special effect gore? Because that was honestly
the
really
corpse bit and
impressive to
all?
me.
I thought the gore was pretty. Honestly, I didn't mind outside of like bug vision. I didn't mind the effects too much.
Yeah, I thought they looked pretty okay.
Let's do Noah's notes while I'm thinking.
Okay.
Cool.
Jeff, did you have any ideas for like a theme song this week?
I was thinking, what if it's like, you guys familiar with, since we're talking about 80s stuff, you familiar with Journey?
Yeah, I've heard of them.
So
What are
if
you, some guy I work with? Are you familiar with Journey?
What if well, I'm not. What if the theme music for the segment was like, any way you wrote it, that's the way you read it. Noah's notes.
That's pretty good.
That
That's
was
pretty
really
good.
good. In fact, that's on the level of another podcast I listen to, having a bit where they read people's mail and they use the Dead Kennedys song that goes, "I'm stealing people's mail." And it makes me happy every time. Okay, here we go. We open on a bus in Switzerland. A bold move.
I really liked the line, people call it the Swiss Transylvania. And then they're like, why? I don't know.
Oh no. And then Donald
That was
Pleasance
my
says it again later. He's like, it's weird here in the Swiss Transylvania. Except he
What
sounds
does
like he's
that
talking into a
mean?
can.
I think it's really funny that they even raise that question in the movie. Like, what does that mean? And
Yeah.
then they don't answer it.
No.
It would
And you
make
can't
sense
call
in
a
like
place
what we
Swiss
do in
Transylvania.
the shadows.
Yeah, well, but like, there's no vampire in the story. Why would you
Yeah.
call the place Swiss Transylvania in your story if it's not going to come back that there's vampires involved? Like,
Yeah, 100.
why? Why would you
Okay,
say it at all? Why would you put emphasis on it?
We've got she looked right into the camera like 6 times. Yeah, absolutely.
She does. Yeah.
She just be looking. We have I can't believe they kept that take of him showing just how dull the scalpel is.
That was such a good. I
They
was
didn't
so
want
happy.
to take another one like of it actually being sharp, but that's okay. We've got the 8 Squadrons of Death. What a dramatic way to talk about bugs. Get ready for a lot of that in this movie. The Great Sarcophagus.
Do you think entomologists actually say stuff like that?
I wish I knew an
I think they
entomologist.
do, just because I think they are that self-important.
Maybe.
This guy's awfully self-important for someone who stated that he was unfortunate enough to have worked with cadaver bugs.
Yeah.
I thought that was a note that I wrote, and I'm like, I don't remember writing that at all.
What was that? Oh, what was that weird foreign language part for a sec there? Total whiplash moment. Again, get ready. Oh, hello. What's this Bangin' Dream soundtrack? Sounds an awful lot like Bruce Dickinson immediately after. Oh, shit. It is actually Iron Maiden. Haha.
I feel like I'm going to get my Iron Maiden fan card revoked, but I've
Well-
never really gotten into Power Slave, and that's what this song is off.
Iron Maiden, I like when it started, I had already read your guys' messages. For everyone listening, I just watched this movie early this morning. I procrastinated enough that I would, like everyone else had already seen it first. So Noah had already mentioned that Motorhead was in the soundtrack. So when Iron Maiden started playing, I was like, this doesn't sound like Motorhead. This sounds like Iron Maiden.
Now, let me real quick ask all of you, which one was more jarring? The Iron Maiden song both times
Motorhead.
or the
Motorhead.
Motorhead.
The second time Iron Maiden kicked in, I was just like, okay, so
Like,
it's a
okay.
theme.
I was like, oh, we're doing this again.
I think I wrote down specifically, oh, is it the movie trying to tell me that this lady's the killer?
Yeah, I saw that earlier. Was
So,
what you said.
I just love how
It's a
abrupt
motif.
it is when it starts the second time, because she's just like looking around the room and then it suddenly starts playing and you're just like, well,
I mentioned this to
all right.
Noah. It reminded me of the scene in It Chapter 2 where Eddie's in the basement and he finds the leper and the leper like pukes on him. And like this 80s pop song starts playing in the background for like a split second and then it cuts again. And it feels like a YouTube poop or a joke edit, but it's in the movie. I'll post a link in the Discord
I
later.
still haven't seen part 2.
This isn't going to spoil anything for you. But yeah, that's what it reminded me of because it's just so out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Motorhead's definitely worse though, and that
It is
maybe
worse,
that's
'cause
just
that's
because
it's-
I can like I don't like Motorhead. Is another
Ugh.
thing. I really
How dare
don't. I
you.
used to be ambivalent towards them, but then a certain person I'm friends with made me listen to them for like 3 days in a row one week. And now I don't let him choose 2 CDs in the morning because we only have a 5 CD player. And whenever I work with him, I'm always earlier than him. So I'll make sure that he only has 1 slot so he can't pick Motorhead. Because I hate it. But yeah, no, I think Motorhead was worse. Iron Maiden kind of felt like it matched the tone of the rest of the music a little more even. I don't know why, but it just did. What else? Hey Donald, where'd your accent go, my guy?
Oh no, here's an important question. That jacket that the girl left at his house, why did it have an iron cross
a
made out of
sparkly
diamonds
iron
on
cross on it. Yeah. That's
it?
pretty
And
weird.
that jacket never comes up again.
No.
But it was very
It was
prominently
also-
big iron cross, like as looking like a military service medal made out of diamonds.
Also,
What's the deal there?
That's weird, but also, why did he say he thought it would fit her perfectly, but it's clearly like 3 sizes too big?
Because he's a man
'Cause
and
he
can't
guessed
judge women's
wrong.
sizes, Nina. It's not that deep, fam.
I just hated that part. It made me so unreasonably upset. What else?
Oh, that's it. When she hops up off of the bed from her really weird EKG and she's like, I am not crazy. And then leaves.
That'll convince
Yeah.
him.
We've got oh hey, the accent is back. Oh, there it goes again.
Yep.
We have great job waking yourself up there, sport. Which, yeah, good for her. I didn't think that would work. For a minute, I wasn't sure that it had, but the music kind of clued me in when it went dong da 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 da. We have, so wait, is this thing a spear gun? And then we have another line, and then okay, so it's a collapsible spear.
Yup.
We have done. I don't want to be rude, but I don't think that bugs are as complex as a soul.
Yeah, he's out here talking about like we've never learned where bugs come from or why they do what they do. We have no knowledge of bugs at all. Studying bugs is almost impossible. Bugs are complicated creatures.
How
And
is
it's
it that he's an expert?
No.
Like, what?
It's not that deep. Full offense. It's not that deep.
Oh my god.
We've never understood the link between the butterflies and the souls.
That was really good. We've got, for being afraid of her, these girls are really assholes, which is true. Also, if they're afraid of her, that just plays into what I complained about earlier.
Yeah, because
Right.
they literally are like, I'm afraid of her. She killed her roommate, and then they're the worst people.
Let's be
It's like, I would be
confrontational.
really nice to her.
I would
if
have killed them.
We've got, please tell me they aren't going to make her the actual devil. They didn't, so that's
I
good.
was worried when they started talking about Baalzebub.
I'm not gonna read them all, but there's a couple allusions in here to Noah being like actually really serious, and I don't think he was like wrong to be serious about this, about the monkey being the murderer.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
No, okay, so 7 minutes into the movie, when the monkey first appeared, I said,
Yeah.
calling it now, the monkey is going to be the murderer.
Well,
And
yeah,
then
because she's
that's
got a knife, and Donald's like, "Oh no, you can't be having that." And then,
Yeah. Yeah, so all throughout the movie, I'm like, okay. So up until Donald Pleasance is murdered, I was holding on to this, let's see if the monkey gonna be the murder. And then Don was killed, and I'm like, okay, so here's to follow up on my theory now that was wrong, maybe they're gonna find the monkey with the knife, or just find the monkey there and he's dead and be
yeah,
like,
the monkey
oh,
gets framed.
the monkey was the serial killer the whole time, and everyone's gonna calm down, and then our heroine would be captured.
Right.
No.
You're just a better writer than these people, and that's just a fact. I have those thoughts about so many movies where I'm
When
like,
you
I would have
say
done this
these
completely
people,
differently.
you're talking only about Dario Argento.
No, I think that there's a couple other like things that Noah and I have watched where we've talked about like how
I'm
we
a
do
very
things
good
differently.
writer of horror movies.
Ah.
We've got I would love less screaming monkey.
There's a bit much.
Me
bit
too.
much of that.
That really hurt my ears. Yeah, there's the thing about pinning this on the monkey later.
Yeah.
Is this lady the killer? Is that what Iron Maiden is telling me? We've got I was not even slightly expecting this pit of body parts.
I was not.
It comes
which
out
is
of
a
nowhere,
mood.
doesn't it?
It really do. I mean, is she just storing them in the water? That doesn't seem the best way to get rid of bodies.
Also,
It
there's no
doesn't.
way that man could reach all the way into that tunnel and grab her with how short his chains were.
No,
Throwing it out there.
no, never.
Then we just have a long chain of ha 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 because
That's the decapitation.
Morris died, and then it's like I thought he would die because of the framing on him, but I didn't expect it to be nearly that funny. And then immediately after that is holy shit, I had totally forgotten about the monk, and then it's just done. That
Yep.
last play of the notes makes me so happy.
It's just done. Yeah, it really just
Incredible.
everything at the end there kind of just comes out of nowhere, and the ending of the movie itself is just like that. Like it just happens, and you get to deal
Yep.
with it.
Yep. True.
Those are all
I-
of Noah's notes. Emma, did you remember what you wanted to say?
I did. I remembered right towards the beginning of the Noah's
Oh,
Notes
good.
segment, so I wrote it down.
Okay.
There you go.
So I was upsetty spaghetti when I looked up this film and it said it was an Italian film.
Uh-oh.
Because as we all know, I hate Italians. That's not true. That was a joke.
Jeez Louise, Emma.
It's because, so I've already picked my next movie that I'm going to do for the podcast.
Is it Italian?
No,
Oh.
it's Korean.
Anti-Italian. Oh,
The
It's
anti-Italians,
Korean, but I
as the
was like-
Koreans are known.
I was like, I'm going to have the first like foreign language film of the podcast. And then I saw this was Italian and I was like, fuck. But then most of this movie is in English with a few weird segments very small weird segments that are in different languages.
Yeah.
By mistake, so it doesn't count.
Yeah, so I'm just like, this doesn't really count as foreign language, so I'll still get it.
Well, I mean, first Korean one, certainly.
Yeah,
Which
first Korean.
I have enjoyed
Which
most
is an
Korean movies that I've
accomplishment
watched,
because-
actually.
Yeah. It is an
I'm
accomplishment
really
to be
excited.
the first K-horror, because I'm really excited to watch more K-horror. I definitely want to do Train to Busan at some point. That's like
Yeah.
big on my list.
Yeah, I'm really
Yeah.
excited about getting more into that stuff.
I'm excited for you guys to watch the one I have picked out.
me
It's going to
too.
be real great. But we're not talking about that right now.
No, that'll have
No.
to wait.
Do we have anything else
Uh,
that we want to say about this one?
It's just weird. It's just so weird. I could talk about weird things, but I mean, that would just be superfluous at this point. That's
Sublurfluous.
what I said.
Blah, blah, blah.
Sorry.
I just realized that I accidentally wrote that the bugs malted his skin and not melted.
Oh no, I was gonna be all big about Jeff doing a verbal typo in an era of Noah doing written typos, and you had to go and out yourself like
Oh.
that. I didn't
Wow.
even read that out loud. I let it go.
I just saw it. I wasn't even paying attention to Jeff making a verbal typo.
Well, you did it to yourself, my
I've
love.
probably made a lot of them in this episode, so
I mean, it took 3 tries to start the episode, so
yeah, I did.
We're doing great here. Hey, so do we want to actually talk about if we're done talking about this movie? Do
Sure.
we want to say what Noah's next movie is?
What's the
Since
next movie,
he's-
Noah?
You're going next, Noah.
man, am I glad you asked, Jeff. The next movie is a movie that I am personally incredibly excited to talk about. I saw this movie before and I didn't like it.
Oh, man.
And I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I will like this movie. So I'm ready to go into it with an open mind
is a
and a
concerning
pretentious
intro.
attitude. It is 2020's Underwater.
Oh,
Oh, boy.
God.
So you can watch it on Amazon Prime. It's available there. I'm very excited because I'm not gonna lie, the ocean is a massive, massive fear trigger for me. I am
Yeah.
dead terrified of the ocean, specifically the bottom of the ocean,
Mhm.
specifically dark water. Hugely afraid of that. And I am wondering if maybe the tension of that, like, because I saw it in the theater and it was a bad time.
Jeff, were you there when we saw it in the theater?
It was not.
Nope.
Oh, okay, that was just Jackson then,
And Rob.
and Rob.
Yeah, so I wanna see if the incredible tension that I felt throughout this movie is why I felt disappointed at the end when the tension released and the very end of the movie didn't have that same level of just oppression the whole time. I want to see if the movie's better than I remember because I can now go into it knowing where it's going and watch it clear and clean.
Well, there you go.
Are there sharks?
No,
Shockingly, no.
no shark.
Good.
No,
Then I'm
There-
fine with this.
Okay.
Fair warning. TJ Miller is in it, and
Ah.
TJ Miller. Well,
He's
here's the
almost scarier than sharks.
He
well, here's the
is.
problem: is this movie was supposed to come out in 2016, and it ended up getting delayed and delayed and delayed. And part of it being delayed, it's widely thought that it's because TJ Miller was in it right as the allegations about him hit.
Mm.
Oh, there's
so-
allegations. Okay.
Oh yeah, no, he's a
I
shitty
hadn't
dude.
heard anything about him. I don't know who he is really.
He
Oh,
voiced the main character in the Emoji Movie.
Well, that's
He
already
was-
That should tell you who
unforgivable.
he is.
He was the bartender in Deadpool.
Weasel's more than just a bartender, but yeah, he
His
did
name's
play the
Weasel.
bartender.
It was the bartender named Weasel. But yeah,
Huh.
2020 underwater. I'm stoked.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. All right.
So that means we
cool.
get Kristen Stewart before covering Twilight.
We do.
We're never
And-
covering Twilight. I will never let that happen.
We're gonna
I
cover
know.
Twilight.
I'll be out that day.
That's fine. I'll
It'll
bring
be a
someone-
guest episode.
we'll bring
We'll bring
someone
a
in-
guest on who loves
Who are we
Twilight.
gonna bring in for Twilight? My mom.
No.
I think it would actually be kind of fun if we did.
That'd be
We'll
pretty
bring in
weird.
Robert Pattinson because he cannot be doing anything better with his time.
He's Batman.
He's Batman.
And
He's Batman.
He busy.
and
Do you think the fans are gonna start calling him Patman?
yes,
Yeah,
Oh
obviously.
think they
man,
already
they
are.
better now.
Okay.
What do they call Affleck's Batman?
Batfleck.
Batfleck. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patman's like a given.
Okay.
Let me Google Patman.
I
and
haven't
see
talked
if
to
it-
any Batman
That's gonna
fans in
come
a
up with
while.
some weird stuff. I was made to. No, I actually can't talk about that on the podcast. I'll tell you. guys
Somebody
later.
forced you to talk about Batman?
No,
There's apparently a politician with the last name Patman,
I knew something
Oh.
like that.
and
was
that's
gonna
all that's
happen.
coming up.
Unfortunate.
That's odd.
It's gonna suck for him when Pattinson Batman becomes.
Apparently,
a big thing.
part of the library that of the school me and Nina went to is named after him.
Really? Which one?
Yes.
The Patman
Oh.
Library.
The Batman Library. Oh no, I guess it just has documents related to him.
Um,
Wild. Okay.
Huh. Interesting.
Cool. Looking forward to underwear. Should be
Definitely
fun.
looking forward to that.
I love Kristen Stewart. She's a gay icon. So
she is.
She's pretty good.
She is good in this movie as well. Like she is
Okay.
Yeah.
easily the highlight of it.
cool. I'm not gonna lie. When you said, Noah, what's our movie for next week? I was kind of sad because I thought it was Nina's turn, and that meant my turn was that much closer. But that's not the case. So
Nope.
my turn is farther away, but that's fine. But yeah, so I guess we will go ahead and close out the episode.
I guess so. Guess we're done.
As
we will.
always, I am Emma.
I'm Nina.
You can find me.
Oh wait.
Wow.
Ha. Wow, just not even wanting me to plug
I
myself.
got so
Okay.
excited. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'm Emma. You can find me on Twitter. My @ recently updated. It is now @ Emma Panada.
Yeah.
Like empanada, but with Emma.
Hey.
Or I've been a player for a one shot or for a couple one shots now on this Twitch streamers stuff on their channel, I
Nice.
guess. And I'm going to be running a game on that channel on Thursday, but it'll be the Thursday before this episode comes out. So hey, you missed it. But also, I'm going to be joining as a player for a long form campaign on that channel.
Nice.
And
That's exciting.
it's at Stella Luna TV. And she's got a really cool community. And starting in mid-May, we'll be doing Ghosts of Saltmarsh. And I have a cute little Triton girl. And it'll be a good time.
That's so exciting. I really wanted to play Ghost of Saltmarsh, but my relationship with that DM fell apart like right as we were going to start it. So I
Yeah.
am interested. I will probably watch that because I'm really interested
can-
about that.
Yeah, you can watch me play it.
Yeah.
Nina, since you had interrupted earlier, why don't you go next?
Hi, I'm Nina. I interrupt. It's actually part of my personality. You can find me at Nina Wolverina in a couple different places. Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, if you so choose. in the Discord for our podcast, even, which we have one now. I am also there, slinging memes and stuff. But yeah, I post art, I do some writing, all that good stuff. You guys just gonna stare at each other?
Noah.
And I'm Noah.
I'm Noah. You can find me at Bubba the Bad,
B-U-B-B-A-D-A-B-A-D.
and I'm on Twitch and Twitter and LinkedIn and
LinkedIn.
You know, I
And
just had to
MySpace.
reactivate my LinkedIn for work, and I hate it. Yeah, I'm Noah, Bubba the Bad, B-U-B-B-A-D-A-B-A-D. I'm on Bitch Bitter.
I already said
Wow.
it.
You're on Bitch
Twitch, Twitter, and Insta. I'm also in the podcast server. If you want to join the podcast, you just have to follow at Casual Horror Pod because we've tweeted about it. So
Yep. Find that tweeter.
But yeah, that's about all I've got.
I'm Jeff. I am also on Bitch Bitter at Bubba Wubba Bubbadab, and I'm on Instagram at the Hammer of Jeff.
Cool. Well, thank you all for listening to our ramblings about this movie and my takes on why it is a bad movie. We look forward to the next episode.
That sucks.
It'll sound good with a reverb on it.